Today's class, which we're going to be doing right now, try to pull it off. Has anyone not seen this before? Raise your hand if you don't know where I'm going with this. Okay. Here are the rules. Everybody listen. You got to draw 4 straight lines. Don't be that guy. 4 straight lines. And you're not allowed to lift your marker off the board. I'll give you a little example. Let's say I went 1, 2, 3, 4. I left one in the middle. 1, 2, 3, 4. I left one over here. You get the idea? 4 straight. If you go up and then you go down again, that's 2. 1, 2, 3. You almost had it. Why'd you stop? 4. Right. Okay, yeah. Okay, now, Jake got it, by the way. He actually got it, as you can see. Okay, here we go. Ready? Here we go. 1, 2, 3. Did I miss it? Yeah. 1, 2, 3, 4. Does everybody see it? It's a little bit messed up because it's not straight, you know, but okay. Everybody see what's going on? 1, 2, 3, 4. This class is entitled Thinking Out of the Box. Does everybody get it? Now, most of you probably got stuck at one point. And that's because you hit a point and you stopped, right? Because when you get to that point, well, now what do I do? Now, why do I say no questions? Because people go say, are you allowed to go out of the box? They kind of ruined it. You understand? That's why I mean no questions. Of course, you can ask whatever you'd like. But the nonetheless, what we're finding is that we get stuck. I'll give you another one, okay? If you heard this before, don't be that guy. There's a guy driving his car 75 miles an hour down the road. It's a Maybach, a Mercedes Maybach, okay? Going 75 miles an hour down the road. And beautiful car. The only problem is that the headlights were broken. The street lights, they weren't working. There was no moon. A kid jumps in front of his car. The guy slams on his brakes, and he just misses him. How did he see him? No racist jokes.
It was day.
Anyone got it? It was the middle of the daytime. Everybody hear that? How did he see him? The magic of sight. What did I say? There was no moon. Street lights weren't working. Headlights were out. How did he see him? The magic of sight. You see, when I start leading you in a direction, you start going in that direction, and you start falling into a trap. Here comes another one. Nobody answer this one for at least 10 seconds. One of you will. We will then proceed to stare at you. There was a father and a son. The father and the son, they were in a car together. And the father wasn't feeling so well, so he asked his son to drive. His son, very responsible, 9-year-old kid. And, he's driving, and he doesn't really know step. It was a little too hard. They fly off a cliff. The car flips 12 times, stops, flips again, explodes, implodes, explodes. The father is killed on impact. The son is rushed to the hospital. Don't be that guy. Don't answer. The son's rushed to the hospital. They bring the kid in. They put him on the operating table. The surgeon walks in, puts on gloves, looks at the kid and goes, I can't operate on this boy. He's my son. How is that possible? Now what happens? It was the mother, right? And I wouldn't be surprised if some of you ladies maybe have a parent that's a doctor, maybe even a mother, you know someone, an aunt, a relative. What's going on over here? We get stuck in a box. You see what's happening? We live our lives like this. It's a very sad reality. We live our lives that we're stuck in a box sometimes, and we never actually break out. What choice do you have is beautiful, what you just said. The answer is none. And this is what's so sad. All of us are living in a box. Now again, no matter who you are in the world, I don't care who you are, it doesn't make a difference. Everyone lives in a box. The question is, did you choose that box or are you put in that box? Do you hear that? Did you choose that box or are you put in that box? What does that mean? That means in the way that you walk, the way that you talk, the way that you dress, the people you date, the jobs you go for, the religion you're involved with. It doesn't matter. Everything we got is we're put in a certain box. Did we ever think outside of the box? Did we ever break out and start thinking for ourselves? I would venture to say an amazing statistic, which I totally made up, but 50% of all the things, all the decisions you ever made in your life, 50% of all the decisions you've ever made in your life, you never made at all. They were chosen for you. Does that make sense? Does everybody understand? Anybody disagree with that? If you're going to disagree, it's only to make it higher. It's probably closer to 90%. Once someone asked me, what's the 10%? I said, you know what? 100%. The way we live our lives is dictated unbelievably. Have you ever met someone before, and then you meet their parents, and you go, oh, now I get it, right? We go, and we copy, and we follow, and we go on with this idea. It's just the way that we were raised. This is what happens, and we live like this. 50%, 90%, 100%. You ever meet someone, and when you meet them, you're like, hey, this guy, he reminds me of him, you know? Or this girl, she reminds me of him. Okay, but they just wanted this guy. But you get there what's going on, that we meet people, and then we're reminded of them, right? We start to think, we're all the same. You guys are now in this room right now. You know how many groups I've taught in this room? I've taught in this room probably at least 3 to 4 groups, okay? And really over the years, probably 300 groups. You're all the same. I mean, you're all very unique. You're uniquely the same. There's the intelligent one, there's the non-intelligent one, there's the drug dealer, there's the drug addict, you go around the room, everybody, and the question is, which one are you, right? Which one did you fit into? I went to a yeshiva. I studied in the yeshiva, and I went to visit that yeshiva 10 years later. There's 100 guys in that yeshiva. So I walked in, and I go to one of the rabbis who's still there, and I said, hey, where am I? He goes, what do you mean? I go, where am I? He goes, what do you mean, where are you? I said, you know, every year it's the same thing. It's just a new face and a new name, but it's the same personality. So where am I? And he goes, that guy. I go, that guy? He's such a loser. He's like, didn't want to say anything, right? I was like, what do you mean? We fit into one of these groups. Advertising is a multi-billion-dollar, what do you call it? Company, organization, industry, thank you. Multi-billion-dollar industry that goes ahead. How are they so successful? Answer is because when you're very little, they mold you, and they put you into one of the 10 boxes. It's sick. Anybody remember a commercial? There was a commercial back in the day. I thought it was 97. I was corrected. It was 2001. You could check it. The commercial is like this. You see silhouettes. As soon as you get it, yell it. You see silhouettes. It's not even real people. You know what a silhouette is, right? Where you see like the movement, right? And you see someone going like this. Nope. What? Apple iPod. When the iPod, anybody remember that commercial? They didn't even, the color, for all the colors, and you were actually sober, right? But all the colors are there, right? And you go and you see this guy going like this. And I remember when I saw the commercial, I had no idea what it was. They didn't even tell you what it was. It's the best advertising when they just throw things out, and then later they tell you. I remember there's a company here. I'll come back to that story in a second. You won't remember that. There's a company here that's called Hot. It's called Hot. Anybody know the company? Hot. It's television, internet, the TV company. When they first started a bunch of years ago, they sent out flyers all over the country. Hot. They didn't even tell you what it was. Hot. So people say like, what's hot? Hot. I got in my mail. Hot. Right? I was like, thank you. Right? And I was like, unbelievable. Hot, hot, hot. Everything's hot. Then they say telephone, internet thing, and everyone's like, hey, you need a new telephone? Yeah, I think I'm going to get hot. You get it? Because it's totally in your consciousness now. Right? So back to our iPod commercial. When I saw that commercial, which you forgot about, but when I saw that commercial, you know what happened? Right away, I was like, I don't know what that is, but I need it. Because it's my personality. All out like this, and then the other commercials that are like this, and very solid, and very structured, and very whatever, and everyone goes into one of these boxes. 7 to 10 boxes. We're putting 10 when we live. So we say, no, it's not true. What are you talking about? We have choices. We make our own choices, don't we? Don't we? What are you talking about? We make our own choices. Is that true? What's the best way to control a kid? Please note, without any jokes here. Rabbi, what's the best way to control, if you have a child, you want to control them, what's the best way to control them? Is to give them a false sense of control. What do I mean? You go to a 3-year-old, you say, put on this clothing. What do they say? No. Right? Good, right? Everyone's like, no. It doesn't work like that. No, father. Right? No. They go, no. Right? No. I hate you. They go and they say, no. So you hold up, you go, put this on. But what happens if you go like this? You take 2 outfits. Do you want this one or this one? So then you have the kid who goes like this. I remember the first time I did this to my daughter. She's very young. She's like 30. So what happened was I went to, and no, at the time she's like 4 years old. And I go, I'm like, okay, which one do you want? So she's like, oh. And then, look. I was like, what are you saying? And she goes, that's eeny, meeny, miny, mo in Hebrew. I'm like, you will talk English to me, young lady. We only speak English in this home, right? My kid is like 4, speaks Hebrew better than me. I'm like, you'll speak English, right? So what happened? But then they feel like, oh, it's my choice. Is it really? What happens when the kid goes, I want that one? They point to another one that's not in the spectrum. You go, I'm giving you a choice of any one you want of these 2. Now, which one do you want to choose of these 2? Do you understand? It's your choice. You hear what's going on? And all of you fell for it. Should I show you who fell for it? Let's talk about cell phones. We all have choices, right? You could have an iPhone. You could have an iPhone 4. You could have an iPhone 4S. You could have an iPhone 5. You could have an iPhone 5S. So I know some of you are thinking, talking about, I got a Samsung, all right? I got a Samsung Galaxy. I got a quad-core processing machine. You understand what I'm saying? So you guys have a lot of choices, right? But you know what choice you don't have? Every single one of you has a cell phone. No one was given that choice, right? It wasn't cell phone or no cell phone. It was, oh, you can have a choice. Which one do you want? But you have to have one. Didn't you get sold? Suckers. And here we are thinking like, you know what, I'll go with Nokia. Answer is, right? Then you realize, no, I won't, right? Right, there's one, but you go, you think you chose, you didn't choose. How about computers? You're like, oh yeah, what about that? I don't have a computer, it's on my phone. They got you double, you understand? You're totally nailed. And you think you made a choice? You realize how sad that is? How many choices have we actually made in our life? We've just lived, and we have continued to live and go on and on. We didn't make these choices, we just continue with them. Unbelievably sad. So what am I trying to tell you? You just came on this trip. I mean, you have an amazing opportunity now. With, by the way, they're not in the room so I could say this. They're not in the room so I could say amazing rabbis who I know personally for many years. Amazing people. If you don't take advantage, you're silly. You can grow, you can build, you can be a different person. You can actually choose the box. And by the way, you might actually be in the right box. But it's a totally different life when you choose it or you're just chosen for you. You actually know what you're doing. You have a direction. You go ahead and say, right. Therefore, this is the beginning, the concept of what? To start challenging. Start asking. Start investigating. Don't just accept. What do we actually know? Okay, you think come on, where are you? Israel. You're in Israel, right? How do you know? Because it says so. Like you get up, it goes, welcome. So if you walked home, you go to your actual house in New York, and your mom's like, welcome to Israel. You're like, seriously? I never knew. This is amazing. I'm home. Right. Twice. Yeah. You see what's going on? So the question is, when you say you're in Israel, how do you know? You see, people, number one is we never really made choices. And when you go and you make a choice, what do you actually know? What choice have we actually made that we actually know what we're talking about? Are we just living that we don't even know? What do we even know? It's so scary. My grandfather used to play a game, he messed with my head. What do you actually know? If I'm coming, I'm professing it, I want you to start making actual choices and really making a decision. So you got to figure out what choices do you have. And the only way to know is not to just take what people have been showing you, but to actually challenge it and get out of the box. They have it here in Israel. Nissan, I think it is. Their slogan is Nissan, chutza kufsa, right? Outside of the box, yeah? So what happens, they go ahead and to break out and to start thinking a little and see maybe there's more choices than Samsung or Apple. Maybe there's a choice of not having one. Does everybody hear what's happening over here? To break out of this idea. But even when you do that, what's the process? How does a person then actually go ahead and make right decisions? How do you know if something's true or false? Or are you just accepting and just going with that also? Now, why do I say it like that? Because how do you even know who you are? They did a study. Who's they? Don't know, but they did a lot, yeah? And one of the things that they did is they did a study where they took a group of students. They put them on a plane. They flew them in the air. They circled for hours and landed in the same airport. But before they landed, they set up props all over. So people landed and they're like, wow, it's so different. The weather is just, I've never experienced it. You're in JFK, you understand? You left and you landed in the same one. But you put up props. Would you imagine the coattail to be big or small? Do you think that is smaller or bigger than you thought? Right. You know why? Because it's not it. You could put props all over the world, right? They set up things all over. How do you know that that's the coattail? How do you know you are where you are? How do you know you're you? Okay, so let's go on, Roseanne. Here we go. You live in 1924 East 4th. You understand. Okay, and you're a massive. Okay, now let's say you come to visit here. Now, I don't know if they told you yet, but the streets of Jerusalem, not recommended to just go anywhere. You understand? You have to know where you're going. There's a lot of alleyways that you go down, you might not come back the same person. You understand? Or at all. That's right. Yeah? Okay, so now, you're walking in the Jewish quarter, and you happen to notice an arrow, okay? And the arrow is like one of these type of arrows with a sign. Okay, now it doesn't have actually this. It doesn't have this part, but it says, Roseanne, massive. Would that pique your interest? Yeah? And you're like, I know that Rabbi Yankee, he told me not to go, but it looks so intriguing. So you go. You take a step down the alley. It's not all the way down. It's right there. There's an office. You go into the office. There's a woman sitting there. So you go to her and you're like, and she's like, can I help you? And you're like, I just noticed, my name is Roseanne. And she goes, me too. That's crazy. So where are you from? You're like, New York. She goes, I'm also from New York. And now it's getting a little like weird, right? And she's like, so what street? And together you say, 1924 East 4th. At that moment, would you get a little freaked out? A little bit freaked out? And you're like thinking, like, what would you do at that moment? She then screams out, Mishtara! What happened? The police come. The po-po as we call them, you know? They come. They block the door and they're like, identity theft. She's accusing you of identity theft. You'd be like, you call your mom, right? You start, well, first you cry. Then you call your mom, right? You're like, Mom, there's this lady here, Roseanne. And then you hear, who is this? And then the girl goes, give me the phone. And you give her the phone. She's like, Mom. And she's like, who was that? What would you then do? Cry again, right? You're like, wait a minute, I have my passport. Aish took it. My cell phone, it's dead. Where are the rabbis? Yeah, rabbis, we've heard that one before, yeah? Now, at any moment, would you start thinking, maybe I'm not Roseanne after all? Oh yeah, you live on 1924 East 4th. Let's play that a little bit. Okay, how many steps are there leading up to the house? Are there even steps? Is there a crack in the steps? How many toilets are there? Are there even toilets? Right? How many shovels do we have in the house? Right? You go and you start to say that idea over and over and over. Eventually, they're going to slip up. Do you understand? And it's going to come out to the idea that what? That the whole thing was a fraud, right? And you're going to come out the victor. Do you get it? Which means what? How do you figure out anything? You have to investigate. You have to get it down. You have to have clarity. It's not just let me just accept something and go with it. How do you know that your parents are your parents? I saw this mother and child, and I said to the mother, I said, wow, your son looks just like you. And she said, he's adopted. I was like, I wasn't talking to you. I was like, what do you do? I was totally embarrassed. People can look alike even though they're not together, right? How do you know? So there's a kid here once, he goes, DNA. I said, I'm not even going to ask, right? Jerry, like, well, why would you take a DNA test? Like, what happened there, right? But they did nonetheless is that what? How do you even know? They showed pictures, because you look exactly the same. You come out with no hair, and like, right, all of a sudden you are now 30 years old, like, right, the same. How do you know? You look like both of them, you sound like them, you can find pictures and the progression that you look the same. It wasn't like evolution. You actually look the same. It's not like you were a monkey. You're like this, yeah? You said over time you start to do this. But it's an idea of what? Of investigating and working it out and fighting it through. How do you know you're in Israel? Answer is, well, we have so many sites right over here. Right? We were on a plane for a certain amount. The pilot said it. So many people, I mean, it's unlikely that so many people are in on the scam. Do you understand? But even though it's unlikely, it doesn't necessarily change it. It still could be, right? Just because you're paranoid doesn't mean they're not out to get you. Yeah? Okay, but the idea of what I'm saying, I know some of you are totally not going to live anymore. Like, I thought it's not, I'm getting over it. Okay, so I say what's happening over here is I'm trying to work out, where are they, right? It's trying to work out, are there cameras here? Okay, we're trying to work out, oh my God, right? We're trying to work out over here to get to this understanding, to really work it out, not just accept. Okay, how about the idea of the following? Now, the truth is, it depends what we're discussing and talking about. For example, is the world, or is Earth spherical, right? When I say round, people go to the sphere. Okay, is the Earth a sphere? Is the Earth a sphere, yes or no? Let's say you were to wake up tomorrow, and you would find out the Earth is actually a triangle. What would that do to your life? Would it affect you in any way? No, right? No one's going to, unless you're like a scientist, which is dealing with the Earth spherical sphere, curl, then you have no problem. It's not like you wake up, are you serious? It's a triangle? What am I going to do? What do I do now, right? Nobody's like, should I walk like this? Like, what do I do, right? Nothing's changed. Nothing's changed. There are certain things that don't matter. If you were to wake up tomorrow and find out Pluto, you know what? We were kidding. It's a planet. Yeah? But in all seriousness, I have a question for a lot of you. Me personally, I'll tell you, when I found out Pluto is not a planet, it really messed with my head. It did. Anyone else? You had the idea? You had the experience? Like, what? They lied to me all these years? How do I even know I'm here? How do I even know there's no Pluto? And it's right. But ultimately, if they brought it back, I'd feel a little better, but it wouldn't impact me in the least. If your parents are your parents or they're not your parents, does it matter? If you were to find out tomorrow your parents are not your parents, would it matter? Yeah. The answer is, that depends on your relationship with them. It wouldn't necessarily matter. In other words, they're your parents, even though they're not your parents. Do you get it? They raised you, they brought you up, and whatever it is. If you had a whole thing against them for years, and you'd be like, see, right? But if you actually have a good relationship with them, so you find that they're not, okay, it might be a little bit shocking, and you want to maybe find your whatever, but you're still going to live your life as these are your parents. Does this make sense? There are certain things, and that's starting to shift a little, that makes a little bit of a difference. Is there a God? Does it make a difference? Does it make a difference if there's a God? Yes or no? Does it make a difference if there's Torah? Does it make a difference if there's Torah? Does it make a difference if the Torah was written by God? Doesn't it make sense to work it out? Doesn't it make sense to investigate a little bit? Does everybody hear what I'm saying? Not just to accept that no, there isn't. Not just to accept yes, there is, but to maybe work it out. I meet so many people, it's such a sad, I'll give you the old story, which if you heard before, again, please pretend like you didn't, make me feel good. There was a rabbi, and this rabbi was living in some like random out there town, working on outreach, trying to bring Jews closer to their heritage. And this rabbi, one time, somebody came in the room and said to him, Rabbi, I just want to tell you, it might be a little uncomfortable, we just met, but I'm an atheist. So the rabbi goes, if we can keep this between us, me too. He goes, what? You're the rabbi. What do you mean you're an atheist? He goes, listen, you get a clergy card, you know? You get off speeding tickets. You get tax breaks. I mean, who wouldn't want to be a rabbi, right? You know? He's like, hold on 1 second. You serious? He goes, relax, I'm kidding. I have a question. You're an atheist, you say? Yeah, I'm an atheist. Okay. So I'm just curious, how did you feel about like Spinoza? Do you like his approach? Do you like his approach? He goes, who? He's like, what about Nietzsche? You like Nietzsche? He's like, I don't need Nietzsche. Nietzsche, Aristotle. It's like, I'm sorry, I don't know what you're. Okay, how about the Jewish ones? Maimonides, maybe Nachmanides. I mean, you've learned this stuff before. He goes, no. So he goes, you're not an atheist. Now, there's two ends to this story. I apologize. Mine and what I heard. I'll tell you mine first. Because you're not an atheist. You're an idiot. You understand? Now, the nicer version, for those who need this, PG-13, is what? You're not an atheist. You're ignorant. And the same God you don't believe in, I also don't believe in. You get it? And therefore, I'm also an atheist. I tell you, you want to be an atheist? No problem. Just be an informed one. Don't be a foolish one. Search, investigate. Don't just accept. Go and actually work it out. You see? Fight down to get truth. It makes a big difference, people. And we have to open our minds a little bit. We have to get out of the concept of just accepting things. Now, I don't want to mess with you too much. You're going to go home. Your mom's going to be like, hi, honey. Hey, Mom. If that's your real name. I'm not coming to do that, you understand? You're welcome to do whatever you want, yeah? But I'm trying to tell you over here, it's like, at least to work it out, get clarity on the things that actually matter. Don't just run away from it, work it out. So I want to tell you like this. Believing in one God was not only Abraham. There were plenty of people who believed in one God. Adam, even Eve, Noah, Methuselah, Shem, Aver. If you know these names, if not, then there's still names. Right? A lot of these people knew this, right? Avram was the first one that did what? That came to it on his own. And the story goes like this. Avram had a father. What was his father's name? Very good, Terach. Or if you can't say it's Terach. Terach was an idolater, right? The guy was into avodah zarah, into idolatry. And one day, Terach had a store called Idols R Us. Yeah, the guy, he manufactured them all. And Terach was one time, he goes to Avram, he goes, Abraham, Avram, could you watch the store? I'm going for a smoke. He goes, all right, Dad, I'll watch it. So what does he do? He goes inside and he smashes all of the idols. He breaks all the wood and he just destroys the place, leaving over one big idol. And he puts the hammer in its hand. Terach comes back, walks in. He goes, oh my gods, what happened here? So Avram's like, oh, Dad, thank God you weren't here. It was nuts. There was a brawl. He's like, what happened? He goes, that one over there. He goes, oh, it's tough being God. And the other one goes, excuse me, let's get things straight. I'm God. And the other one goes, yo, mama's God because I'm God, right? And the mama comes out, yeah, that's right, he's God. And there was a brawl, WWE, gets nuts, right? You guys know where I was going? And I can't say it out loud. But the point is, what happens? You get into a massive brawl, and they're fighting. That must be the real God, because he's the only one left. So Terach turns to Avram and goes, Avram, I went for the smoke, not you. What's wrong with you? Sticks and stones, they can't do anything. They can't even move. So Avram turns to him and he goes, so why do you worship them? Has anyone ever been busted, totally nailed? Like you had a certain opinion, but someone comes and totally nails you and shows you how you're totally wrong. Has that ever happened before? Now we have two ways that we can react to that. One is, Modala emes v'dor emes b'vav. You know what? That's a good point. Another way is, chutzpah. Right? Or as we say in New York, chutzpah, right? I'm taking you to the king of the time, Nimrod. We'll see what your God is there, fool. Bring it. So they bring him to Nimrod. Nimrod was the king of the time. And Avram Avinu comes to him and he goes, Nimrod's like, Abe, what are you doing? You're upsetting society, man. You're messing up the balance here. You understand? We believe in polytheism, multiple gods. You know what I mean? Enough of this, like, maybe there's none, maybe there's one. What are you doing? So Abraham turns, Avram says, oh yeah, Nimrod, I got a question. He said, what is it? Shoot. He goes, which God do you believe in? He goes, me? I believe in the God of fire. Fuego. Fire burns. Fire destroys. You set fire to the rain. You can go, say it's powerful and it's mighty, and my God is a God of fire. He goes, well, why not water? You know what I'm saying? Water puts out fire. Abe, you're onto something. My God's the God of water. Water puts out fire. It builds, it destroys tsunamis and typhoons. We're talking about unbelievable water. It's so powerful. My God's the God of water. He said, well, then why not clouds? I'm saying water comes from the clouds. Clouds. My God is the God of clouds. Because clouds they bring the rain, they put out the fire, and they cover the skies, and and the thunder rolls, God's brook runs out, and, right? And it's unbelievable. And it comes out, my thing is the God of clouds. He goes, well, why not wind? Wind just moves the clouds wherever it wants. He's like, wind! Wind moves the clouds, and it brings the water, and it puts out the fire. And it's powerful, and you got all the tsunamis, and the typhoons, and the monsoons, and the hurricanes, and the tornadoes, all come from wind. Wind isn't my God. He goes, well, why not God? God brings the wind, which moves the clouds, which brings the rain, which puts out the fire. Chad Gad Ya, Chad Gad Ya. And he goes, all right, enough of this, all right? My God is a God of fire. Okay, hermano? Let's take a look and see whose is muy fuerte. You understand? Want to bring this? Then bring it, baby. All right? So they build a fire. They build a fire, the Talmud says, for so many days. They built it for like 3 days that was so hot that they even called it very hot. And they go to Avram, and they go, all right, now's your last chance. And they take him. So what you got, baby? You with us? Or are you with something else? Now, I want to point out that at this stage, Abraham had not yet met God. Yet he lives with the following line, or almost dies with the following line. I would rather die than to live my life as a lie. How many of us can say the same thing? I would rather die. I don't even know this one God. Maybe there's no God. Maybe there's one God. Who knows? I would rather die than to live my life as a lie. They're like, all right, dude, you ain't with us, no problem. They take him and they throw him in the fire. Anybody remember Saved by the Bell? Anybody saw that? It's all right, cause I'm. So what happens? They take him and they throw him in. Zach comes out, freeze frame. Right? Time out. Freeze frame, time out, whatever they called it, right? Now, Abraham was like this. And he had a brother there. Abraham's brother was there. And his brother's like, oh no, I'm next, right? They're going to test me. They're going to come, they're going to ask me next. They're going to ask, whose side am I on? I know what I'll do. If Abraham walks out okay, I'm with Abe. If Abraham dies, who doesn't love multiple gods? You know what I mean? So what happens? Unfreeze time in, they throw in Abe, Avram, he's in the fire, and he dies. Okay, you're right, and he survives, right? He walks out totally unscathed, totally fine. I mean, if he would have died, we wouldn't really be here right now, right? So what happens? He goes ahead. We would maybe from other things. Okay, so the bottom line is what happens? He survives. Then they go to the brother. Who are you with, baby? He goes, I'm with Abe. They take him, they throw him in. What happens? He survives. He survives. He walks out of the fire, and then he dies. What happened, though? He got burnt. Where did he get burnt? Only on the inside. The outside of his body came out completely intact. The inside of his body was completely burned up, and then he died. How come? Answer is, because on the outside, everything looked okay and good. He believed, didn't he? He went into fire for God. Isn't that unbelievable? But the inside, he didn't have anything. He didn't really believe it. He was just a follower. Do you get that? We have to investigate and check and get it ourselves. What made Abraham special? The fact that he smashed his idols. He didn't just accept his upbringing, he challenged it. And by challenging it, he came to a conclusion. I don't know if we're meeting again or not. If we are, then we're going to have to go through the steps of what Abraham did to get to his conclusion. If we're not, you should go through the steps to find out Abraham came to this conclusion. But the idea that I'm trying to get across now is that we have to smash and challenge, not just accept. Think, choose. What I want to do right now, quick recap of everything we did. End off with one point, then we'll take any questions, comments, stories, jokes, attacks. Here we go. So we started at the beginning with an attempt, what's up, Jake? Right, of going ahead in circles, but you did nail that thing. Right, we go through the whole thing, coming to what's called thinking out of the box. It was the mother, right? And after he said it was the middle of the day, right? So the question is, what happens? We get stuck in the box. What happens? Start to live our life that people put in that box. I'm not saying that's supposed to be in the box, but at the end of the day, if you're supposed to be in the box, you should know you're in that box, not just be put in that box. Oh, how do you give a person control? You give them a false illusion of control. Use this one or this one. I want that one. I'm giving you choices. Apple, 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 Samsung. But you need one, right? There's no choice of what, no phone. What happens? You go in this idea, 7 to 10 people in the world. What happens? A person gets stuck in the idea, that's me. You go up like this. You have the idea. Everyone gets caught up in the idea. You're going to choose which one you're going to be. Multi-billion-dollar industry, right? What happens? What they do is they get you in a situation where you go and it happens. You don't even start to think. You just live your life in the way you're just living. Understand, people? What? This is scary. Did we actually make a decision? We're a decision for us. Oh, you're a Knicks fan? Oh my goodness, right? And they say what's happened in Jersey, New York. All right, so they say they did. Unless is that we have to start breaking out of these things. Start actually asking the questions. Start thinking freely. Start thinking for ourselves, and not just accepting what people are telling us, but actually working it through a little bit. Which brings the idea of Avram Binu. What Avram Binu do? What does he do? He goes in and he smashes his idols just to accept. Oh my God! He goes and he sees what's happening. Who says it's true? Who says it's not true? Maybe it is. Maybe it isn't. But you got to go and you ask, how do you know that you're really? Maybe I'm not Roseanne. And it says no. So hopefully you'll still know that you know that you have 10 fingers. How do you? You got to investigate. Pluto is the planet. It's a triangle. Answer: these things don't really matter. Understand? Parents are your parents. Is there a God? I think that makes a difference. That will impact the rest of your life. Depending on which one you want to go with it or not go with it, that's still up to you. But at the end of the day, does it even exist? Is it even true? The only way to know is by start investing, start asking the questions. Don't just accept and start breaking free. This is why what happens. Welcome to Florida. This is why we're here right now. The person goes ahead. We are here right now. You're on a trip right now. For how long? 10 days? 2 weeks? 2 weeks? I encourage you, especially if I'm not teaching you, challenge your teachers. Right? Ask them. They're ready for it and they want it. Don't just accept what they say, fight with them, but not for the sake of fighting, for the sake of getting truth. And hey, you know what? If you start getting that truth, perhaps maybe you want to start going with it. That's another discussion. But at least start fighting it out, not just accepting it. Before you know it, hey, you'll be in a box, but it's a box that you chose. And the next time somebody puts something up on the board, you can be like, no, that's so good. Any questions, comments, stories, jokes, attacks? Please keep them verbal, non-physical. This has been a pleasure. See you when I see you. If I don't, then I won't. Take care and bye-bye.